Thanks for joining us this morning as we review the movie Frequency that came out in the year 2000, otherwise known as
Talking to Your Dead Father to Save Your Mother.
Yes, it was. It's an interesting one. It's a science fiction thriller, actually probably one of my favorites. It is a little on the violent side, but other than that, I think it hits all the right marks and overall good movie. In a world where time is both a death sentence and a lifeline, a son discovers a connection that defies the boundaries of past and present. Meet John Sullivan, a firefighter haunted by the shadows of a tragic past. But when an old ham radio sparks to life, John is thrust into a mesmerizing dance with destiny. Through the static, a voice emerges, a voice that shouldn't be there. It's the voice of his father, Frank Sullivan, calling from 30 years in the past. Together, across the waves of time, father and son forge a bond that transcends the ordinary. But as their actions echo through the years, a cold case reopens. Destinies are rewritten, and the threads of time start to unravel. When they change the past, they awaken forces that challenge the very fabric of reality. And every altercation has a price, and every choice has consequences. In this riveting sci-fi thriller, John and Frank must navigate the complexities of time to uncover the truth, face the shadows that lurk in the past, and forge a future that defies the boundaries of destiny. Frequency is a tale of love, lost, and the echoes that bind us through time. Are you ready to answer the call? Dun, dun, dun. Actually, I thought it was really good. Okay, so I want to get your personal ratings. Put in the comment section, if you don't mind. If you have seen this movie, what your rating is, and if you had a favorite scene or something like that was in there. It may have been a while since you've seen this, because 2000, so we're talking 24 years ago when it came out. But it is currently streaming on, I believe it's streaming on, no, it's not streaming on Netflix. I had to look it up to see if it's on, I think it's on YouTube. It's actually on YouTube. I think it's around $3 US to rent. But I own a DVD of it, so it's easy enough for me to watch whenever. But if you did get a chance to see it, let us know what your rating was, and like I said, what your favorite scene was, and what was your rating?
Oh, I'd say this was pretty solid. I'd give it probably an 8 out of 10.
Would you?
Yep.
Okay. And what would you base that on?
Based on the interaction between the father and the son characters in this, how it shows the father as being critical to the son's development. I think it really shows the nuclear family as a critical element in just how that helps a child develop into being more capable.
Right. And not just the father too, because
father, mother, yeah.
You know, the whole thing. Yeah, I would give it a solid 9, and maybe even budge it up a little bit more. And I think that's partly because of my own experience losing my mother early on, and then also recently losing my father. So there are some parts in there, man. They're tearjerkers for me, and it's not a bad. It's a good thing. The suspense and everything that goes into it. So we're going to dive into a pre-spoiler review here in a bit, and also get into the spoiler part too. So if you don't want to be spoiled, you can vacate and go watch a movie and then come back and watch this again. By the way, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you haven't hit that like button yet, please do. That actually does help quite a bit. So take a quick look at the comments here. See if we have
You're
anybody.
muted.
No,
No.
don't do that to me. Gosh. Hello, brothers. A peace of Christ be upon you both, your families, viewers, and all. Amen. Amen to that. I don't see any responses yet about it, but we'll see as we go along, see if we get any other responses. We'll keep an eye open on the chat. So one of the things we look at in our reviews is to see if there are any Christian themes. And there are Christian themes here that are going to be spoilers. So I don't want to hit those right off the bat, but I will say that there are some themes in here, even though this is not a Christian movie and it's not coming out to say anything in particular. There are some things that are highlighted. We have sacrificial love, redemption, and second chances, consequences of actions, and you've already mentioned it, the father and son relationship, which is a
family dynamic.
Family dynamic, yes. Yeah, but that is a central part to this. We'll dig deeper into that here in a minute, but it's going to be spoiler section, so we don't want to hit that too hard just yet. Taking a look at also the cast and crew, or the cast of the movie, you might recognize some faces here. The son is played by, the father is played by Dennis Quaid, and excellent performances all around for all of these actors. The mother is played by Elizabeth Mitchell, and the son, where do I have?
That's not the son.
I don't have the son. I didn't put him in here. I'm missing a cast member.
No,
I did have him in
it's
earlier.
just a minor role anyway, right?
No.
One of the small back characters.
No. Jim Caviezel, who does he was in the Passion of Christ? He is a big time player. He did Sound of Freedom recently. He was in there. Christian brother, awesome performance, and he really stands out. And I don't have the cast picture of him, but I do have this one. Here he is. So if you don't recognize him, you get to know who he is there. So the other cast members, we have his friend who plays an instrumental role in here, Gordo, and the guy who is a police officer in here. He's also like an uncle, Satch, played by Andre Braugher, who recently passed away last year. So kind of sad about that. So spoiler-free rating. What would you say were the pros and the cons for this?
Pros and cons, I would say, again, heavy emphasis on the family dynamic. The pro would be I do love how they handle the whole time travel concepts. They use the an overriding, so you'll see there'll be sections that just change like that,
right?
So that's the format they are using as far as how they look at.
So we went over we did a live stream about the different types of ways that you fixed time during time travel. So if you go back and you have the grandfather paradox, you go back, you kill your grandfather. Would you actually be born? Because if you killed your grandfather before your father was born, you wouldn't have a chance to be born. So if you were never born, you would never be able to go back in time. If you never went back in time, you would never killed your grandfather. So you would have been born. You have this causal loop that's going on. And that's addressed in different ways in different time travel movies. And what you're saying here is that
it's overriding.
This is the overriding one. So
it's one timeline, and if you make a change in the past, it overrides. It basically just redraws what was there, and they do a great job with that.
Yeah, so I do have a bit of a different take on this. I believe it's what I would call superposition, where you do have the two and they do combine into one. Where there is that tension in between, which in this case, we'll get into this later, doesn't really work very well but it doesn't matter. We're just handle a little hand waving with this. Pretend it doesn't matter, and we'll get into it. Was there any? Was that would be a con with this, or would that be a pro?
I'd say it's a pro as far as how they handle it animation wise.
Okay. Oh yeah, definitely handle
it very well.
Yeah,
visually.
Okay.
I don't think there's some sexual overtones to it, but that's about it. I think all in all.
Okay. So I would say there's a tight blend of surprise and suspense in here. So it is a bit of a thriller, and there's really good pacing in here from one scene to another, and there's twists. You don't expect certain things to happen that pop up. So the pacing and tension were great throughout the movie. It kept me wanting more. Another thing I thought was good is it was well written, directed, and acted across the scene. That's why I would say I would give it a 9. It uses symbolism, theming, parallel shots, single flash cuts at pivotal moments, especially when there's been a time change. Something happens there because he's talking. So the premise behind this movie is that the son gets his ham radio, and it's his dad's old ham radio, and his dad has passed away. He died in a fire. And so he's really kind of distraught about this. This happened 30 years ago when he was a kid. And he pulls out this ham radio, and the next day is his dad's anniversary, the anniversary of his dad's death. So he's really just kind of depressed about this whole thing. He pulls it out and fiddles around with it, and he gets it working actually. And there's this guy on the other end, and they start talking and chatting. They really start connecting. And towards the end of the conversation, they realize, hey, and this isn't too much of a spoiler because this is a main theme. This is a main part of the movie. In this conversation, he realizes, wait a minute, this guy is acting like my dad. He's talking like my dad. And he's acting like the 1969 World Series is tomorrow. That 30 years ago. That's crazy. And just before their communication cuts off, because it happens during this Aurora Borealis event, he realizes that maybe this was his dad somehow. And then that's what gets the movie going. And there's a whole bunch of tension back and forth. They're talking over this 30-year difference. And I got to stop. Can't say anymore with what's going on because it would be a spoiler. So it hit home emotionally with me. This is number 3 of being on the pros. It hit home emotionally. I mentioned this earlier. There's many parallels in my life to the point of even trying to get my dad to quit smoking. There was a part of that was in here. And it also showed positive and negative masculinity. Right now, you have a lot of Hollywood movies and so forth coming down, just beating down on toxic masculinity, that being a man is somehow bad. And this shows his father and son, both in these masculine roles. The son is a police detective, the father is a firefighter. And they're tough guys. They go in, they put their lives on the line to save other people. And it brings that out, and it shows even though it's the father and son, they don't realize it at first when they're talking. There's just like this brotherly camaraderie there. I thought was really well done. And so any cons with this at all, spoiler free?
I don't think any cons spoiler free.
I've heard some people say it was campy. There was just like, it was cheesy. The end fight scene or whatever was too much. And it was contrived.
I thought it was well done.
You know what? Forget it. I think it's good. I went to it. All right. We have got checking a couple of the comments here real quick. Amazing actor. Also great loss. Yes. So I'm trying to think of what other shows that he was in, but he plays the skeptic in this movie. He doesn't believe this other stuff is going on. It takes a lot to convince him. And he also plays the uncle figure to the main character. He's a bit of an aspiration to the kid when the kid loses his father. Satch is the name of the uncle, so to speak. He comes in and kind of takes John under his wing, and then John becomes a policeman like Satch is. So he is a main character in this movie and plays a great role. So I do want to show some scenes here, and then we'll flip over to the spoiler section. when it starts out and they first dig up this ham radio, here is John with his friends. They're talking about, they're just joking around. And then he gets on the radio and he's talking to his dad here 30 years before. And there's one point here that I thought was pretty cool. The dad has the younger version of John come in, sit on his lap, and he talks to him, right? He talks to his future self. And it's I think it's pretty funny. It's pretty good. And there's a time where he's really grieving his father's loss. And again, I won't go into what happens next because that's spoiler. We're hitting spoiler sections. So if you have not seen this movie and do want to, be postponed and be forewarned. That's here on out are treacherous waters.
Still think even with the spoilers, though, it's a good movie.
Yeah, yeah, you're not going to ruin too much. So back to the Christian themes. We can get more into this now. Sacrificial love. The sacrifices made by both John and Frank to protect their family is an example of God's sacrificial love. A concept and a central theme to both this movie and to, of course, the entire life of Christ and what God did for us on the cross. His sacrifice paved our way to renewed relationship with him. And that also is number two, the second chances. The narrative involves an opportunity of redemption and second chances. John, who is the kid who grows up, John's ability to communicate with his father in the past provides a chance to correct mistakes and prevent tragedies that are fully in line with Scripture, what was happening with that. And then, of course, there's consequences of our actions. Even little things that were done here, little bits, little changes in the past make huge repercussions for the future. Now, think about this with Abraham. The decision Abraham made to follow God, to listen to God, was huge. You have the whole nation of Israel that follows, the bloodline through which the Messiah comes. Everything is all because this guy decided to hear and to follow God. And think about that for your own life. You may think that there's inconsequential decisions you're making, but they can have huge consequences for good or for bad. And we saw that happening with huge changes. They did this awesome changes when, like, his father then was saved, and you see the parts of his apartment change. And now he remembers, like you said earlier, both the past with his father alive and then with his father dead.
Yeah, so it kind of locks timeline together, and he's the only one that has memory of both.
Right.
Coming through, and they're kind of overriding. The new stuff is overriding the old stuff, and he starts forgetting the old stuff eventually.
Yeah, when we reviewed that movie, It's a Wonderful Life, and you saw what would happen if the main character had never existed. It was a completely different world. And again, remind you that your place in this world that God has for you, there are impacts and changes that you're making. And if you do it through him, you do not know. It's almost like it would be a gift from God to allow us to see what the differences were. Maybe when we get to heaven, he'll allow us to watch something like that and see all this progress that was made through his hand, through his grace.
No, but some of the tiny things that you think are inconsequential. So the dad survives. He goes, meets up with the mom in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And that really kicks off the second major issue that they have to deal with, where he goes there and he saves a patient indirectly,
because he's there. Now, she wouldn't have been there. She would have been had his funeral. His mom was there with him. She greets him, and she's a nurse. And then she sees, this one patient, he was going to be given the wrong injection, wrong medicine, and then she saves him.
And that would have killed him. So she saves his life by correcting it.
So great that she saved his life.
And because of that, there were serial killings going on, and that was a serial killer.
She saved the serial killer.
And multiple more women died because of that action. Right. And they have to track down, including her.
Right.
So now you got another issue.
Yeah. So the consequences of our decisions is a huge, and it does show that explicitly in this movie. I think it was a great thing. And then finally, and I let this last because it is so important, the father and son relationship. The strong emphasis on the relationship between the protagonist John Sullivan and his deceased father Frank can be seen as a reflection of the bond of individuals in a family and our bond with our Heavenly Father. So rating, I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but it's pros and cons for the spoiler-free rating. Spoiler-filled rating is they had a great villain here. The guy, the Nightingale killer, because he killed nurses. That actor, he made my skin crawl.
He did a great job.
It's like, oh.
Again, just like whenever we're talking about Shift, it doesn't, if you don't have a really good villain or a really good actor to play the villain right, your movie will flop.
Yeah, you know what? We would say that for all the ones that we gave good ratings for.
Oh, yeah.
And Nefarious, obviously.
Nefarious,
right?
Great job acting.
Godzilla was a good...
Godzilla did a great job in that one, man.
Great acting for Godzilla. You did a good job. And then the father and son bond, both Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel did really good. You could feel the relationship, the bond between them. And then when he realizes this is his dad, and then losing his dad, listen to me, don't do this, go the right direction. And the talk back and forth, they're handicapped in this relationship because they can't see each other. They can't be with each other. They're just talking over a radio. There really is no time travel that's done in this entire movie. You're just talking to somebody.
Just sending a message to the past.
Right. And then the mother-son bond too. We wouldn't forget that. Is that because there is that point where he loses his mom because the Nightingale killer comes and kills his mom. And then a great use of time travel. There was that one scene, and this is with time travel, it can get really messy and kind of ruin a story. But if it's done well, it can be done well to great effect. And one of these was when the Nightingale killer grabs his father's wallet and rifles through it. His son says, "Dad, do you still have the wallet?" He says, "Yeah." He said, he left his fingerprints on it. Remember that part where he does that? And then he says, "Well, what can I do with it? I'm back here 30 years ago. It's not going to help you at all."
Not fingerprinting it. There's no fingerprinting.
Oh no, well, yeah, but he really can't do anything as a as a firefighter. He's not going to be able to do much. But if he stores it in the house, his son is still in the same house in that spot. His son can take it out and see it and does the dusting of prints and finds out who the Nightingale killer is. That was
really well done.
That was well done. And so then there's also the great use of theming that they have to. Now, as a writer, this is the type of thing that I look for. Baseball. Baseball was used throughout the movie. It was used as a symbol. The 1969 World Series is a key to suspense, to bonding between father and son and their community, and as a method to convince unbelievers that Frank is really talking to his future son, because he was able to say, "Hey, in this inning that such and such happens," and then it does happen, and the skeptics say,
"Oh, okay, well,
if nothing else, you got to wait a bet here, so you can try that." And then it closes with this new family that's whole now, that everybody's there. It closes with a Little League baseball game, and so they're just really good emotional hits on all sides with it. And so as far as, again, con, I would say that there is not much in the ways of negative here. Personally, I would like to see a better explanation on the whole issue of time travel. How exactly did the Aurora affect this ham radio? The geeky engineer in me wants to know. However, I think the explanation in this movie would be a distraction and take away from the other aspects of it. So it's better just a hand wave and say, good enough. It was rare. It's a freak event. It happened. Let's see what we can do with it. And so that part was good. Did you have any other comments that you wanted to add to it?
No, I think we nailed it. Again, this is real refreshing, being that the nuclear family is the ideal. And as long as he does not have that nuclear family, he is not in the best position. The son is not in the best position that he could be. Once he has that nuclear family at the end, there are massive changes to his life.
Right.
It's all put right. He is in a much better position. And it really shows how critical moms and fathers are to their kids.
Yep, absolutely. We got a comment here from Thomas Hall. It says, make me wonder what our relationships with family would be like on the other side. That's a good question. Well, we know that there's no marriage, right? Because Jesus addresses that when the Sadducees come to Jesus and say, what happens? This man marries all these women, and whose wife is it? Now, one aspect that you may not realize when you're reading that one section about the Sadducees confronting Jesus about this, they didn't believe in heaven. They didn't believe that you would be going either way. So they're more trying to catch him on that than trying to catch him, in something else. And Jesus gives them a good answer. He says, don't you know that that's not even, you're going to be like angels. You're not going to, there's no marriage, because there's no procreation. This is it for families. But the relationships that we have, I can imagine that they would just be even far more deeper than we have here. God's not going to be taking something good away from us without giving us something better in exchange in heaven. So I don't see that as being a bit of a negative. And Francis says the explanation is a worker pressing play hired by his late father, so the son can feel like he's talking to his father. Thoughts in shower. You know what? That sounds like a title for either a great TV or radio series brought to you by Francis. Thoughts in shower.
No, that'd be great.
As long as there's no video involved with it, we should be fine.
There should be a book. It should just be like thoughts in shower.
There you go.
And it's just all the random thoughts you think of in the shower in this book.
I do some of my best thinking because everything else is blocked out. So yes, I think that'll work.
I think you might have a bestseller on your hands.
There you go. There's a book
for no other reason than it's just an extremely interesting title.
That's right. So I think we're going to keep this short and sweet today. I would highly recommend this movie. The only thing that would be negative really about it would be that it is violent. There is a serial killer involved. There is talks about this, but it's no worse than maybe watching an episode of CSI or something like that, where there's a police investigation that's going on. The powerful part is here, I believe, is the bond of the family and the love that is there, especially from father and son. We see so much of that being trashed, that either the father is an idiot, or he's the absentee father, or the father that's left, the father that's drunk, the father that abuses. Here you don't have that. Here you have a strong relationship, and the only part that it was bad was it was a lost one because the father died. And then seeing it all restored. I would highly recommend this to everybody. And if you're like me, bring a box of Kleenexes just in case, because you don't know, this might hit you just in the right spot. So with that, we'll bid you adieu for the day. And then we have coming up, we are originally going to be doing the why books were chosen for the New Testament. What books were chosen for the New Testament, what weren't, and why was the Gospel of Thomas kicked out? Why was it banned? And we'll talk about how all these books were come together, why they were chosen, and everything. That's next Thursday. The reason why we postponed it, because there's going to be a special part to that. We thought, you know what, we want to make this really good, and so we moved it back a week. And then next Tuesday, we're going to be looking at the movie Gravity. Who Holds On to You? Another sci-fi film that's a bit of a on the edge of your seat sort of watcher, and I think it'll be a good one. Looking forward to that. So until then, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next Tuesday.